And welcome to Light Years. Andy Lou, special holiday edition of Light Years. We're recording this before the Warriors Clippers Wednesday night. Not going to do a post game show Wednesday night or Friday night. Thanksgiving. I hope you guys can bear with us. We will be back Sunday though for the Wolves, so we can get frustrated together
yet again. Everyone enjoy the holidays. We appreciate the love, appreciate the support all season long, all decade long. Has it been like a decade that we've been doing this together? So corny is being thankful for our listeners, but it is what it is, right? We love y'all, and we're gonna give one more show, like Sam said, before Sunday, before we run it back again with the post game. So
we are thankful for you.
Jesus.
Dude, also,
take that off. Producer Tim, dude, I can't do it.
All right, let's get into it. So I don't care to talk about the Clippers just because they're not playing anyone. They are doing the same BS the Warriors are doing, only at least the Warriors have the rings to back it up a little bit. The Clippers is just disgusting. I don't know. Kawhi's not even an NBA player as far as I'm concerned. Play 10 games in a row.
Is that a real ankle injury, by the way, that he's out? Do you know? Because that's the only thing I care about. That's a problem if it is. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I have no clue. That's what I'm going to leave it at. I have no idea what to take of any of the Kawhi situation. He comes back from the ACL, all camp. We're hearing about how he looks amazing. Right. We see the pictures. He looks huge. And I was like, oh, Kawhi's back, and he might even be better. Plays like, what, one game off the bench, maybe two, and then all of a sudden it's back, the knees, and I don't know. Like, obviously I'd like him to get healthy, and I feel bad, but I don't know what to do with him.
The thing is, like, they're going to win 45 games without him, but it's like, what does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything if Kawhi isn't healthy, because they're a 55-win team with him, right? So, look, the Warriors have a chance to go.
They're a play-in team without him, and they're a contender with Pete Kawhi, and
100%.
So there's nothing to say until we know if he's back.
100%. And the Warriors, meanwhile, do you think they're 45-win team without Steph? Do you think they're a play-in team without Steph right now? So, but we are. What are they?
I will say this: they would have they're worse than the Lakers if Steph is out. Say what you like. I think they're leading the Wembanyama sweepstakes with no Steph. I don't even think that's a take. Do you? No. Like, it just kind of, they can't do anything without Steph. Steve Kerr can't coach. Clay can't make a shot. Draymond checks out. Jordan Poole terrible. Wiggins goes back to Minnesota form. I mean, say what you want about all the great things, an organization, whatever. There's one man who holds the whole thing together.
Yeah.
So yeah. There is an interesting matchup Friday against the Utah Jazz, who are currently second in the West and have been kind of the hottest team in the NBA. Well, really, I feel like the Jazz and the Kings are kind of a great macro conversation, because they're the two best stories. Like, Warriors second unit, miserable to watch. Utah and Sacramento, amazing to watch. Like, easily my two favorite teams in the NBA right now, outside of the local team. And I just want to ask you, why do you think the Jazz and Kings are so good?
So, let's start with one over the other. So I'm going to start with the Utah Jazz. I think, and this ties directly with the Warriors bench. I think what the Jazz have done, and maybe they accidentally did this, is that they picked up a bunch of guys that they weren't out the league, but they were pretty insignificant. And in order for them to figure out how to either get one another payday, or just figure out how to be like an actual basketball player in the NBA, one that actually has actual status, they need to actually learn how to play together, right? It's very much we have to learn how to play together to win, versus we need to make money. And I think the Utah Jazz put together a bunch of guys that understood that. They also have a bunch of guys that know how to play that way, but I think some of the times it's just the mindset. Lauri Markkanen, like, he was supposed to be a good player years and years ago. Now he's a guy that is on a second or third team. Colin Sexton basically got booted off the Cavs. He got his money, but not as much as he wanted. But he got booted off the Cavs. The Cavs were just like, we could do without him. We've already got our guy Darius Garland. Jordan Clarkson, sixth man type of guy. Mike Conley, there's your vet guy standard, right? Kelly Olynyk, vet guy. So that's your answer again to the Warriors. But I think overall, dude, the main thing that you see with that team, and it's kind of actually similar to the Warriors teams of past, they actually just enjoy playing with each other, and the ego isn't there. There's zero ego with that Jazz team, and I think that's what makes them great. Now, they have no ceiling. I do think they probably are a first-round team, maybe second round, because they don't have a Steph. They don't even have a Klay Thompson. But they just enjoy playing together, and I think when you watch the Warriors bench unit, you even watch Jordan Poole play basketball and Klay, they don't enjoy playing with each other this season, especially the young guys, because they're not on their second or third contract. They're still young. They're still trying to make money. They haven't gotten – basically what I'm trying to say, they haven't gotten humble yet. It's a lot of these Warriors young guys. They haven't gotten humbled yet, and I think that's the big difference between these guys.
They accept their role. That's what you're saying. Yeah. I actually think they also do have a lot of good basketball players. They're just role players. And I think sometimes we underrate the value of role players in the modern NBA. I think this league is more about role players than it's ever been. Someone like Kelly Olynyk, he is a better facilitator and spacer than here's a good example. Is he more talented than Wiseman? Physically, no. But does he understand does he do things that matter in terms of winning a basketball game more than Wiseman? The answer is resoundingly yes. He can hit open shots. He understands where to be on defense. He's a hell of a passer, makes his players around him better. And those things translate to winning in an NBA, which is more focused on spacing and IQ than it's ever been. That's kind of my thing. I look at guys like Jared Vanderbilt. That dude knows how to rebound and defend, and he stays within himself. Malik Beasley, a little more of a chucker than I would like, but he can legitimately defend the perimeter, and he can shoot it a little bit.
He's also a great shooter. He's legitimately a great shooter.
Yeah, he's kind of like KCP, to be honest. A little more of a gunner than that. But, they have a bunch of guys who know what they're doing, and it makes it easier that almost it's I don't think Lowry and Clarkson and Sexton are a big three that's going to get you anywhere. But it kind of proves if you put smart role players around scorers, you're going to have baseline success. And it's kind of the opposite of the Warriors. The Warriors know they have the guy, Steph Curry. And they obviously have Draymond and Wiggins and Clay's coming around. But outside of that, they have no one who knows how to play basketball really. And to your point, they don't appear really interested in learning either.
Yeah,
they appear more interested in figuring their own thing out,
Yeah. Which almost you can't blame them. That's the thing. You sit here and I would probably do the same thing. Who wouldn't do the same thing unless you're coming in with a extremely high level of basketball IQ, which not many players come in with that. Even guys that you love even Draymond Green, who has extremely high IQ, didn't come in the NBA just understanding it. Even he had to go through seasons, and his trajectory was so much higher than his baseline was so much higher than what we're seeing from Wiseman and Kuminga and Moses Moody. That's really the guy this what you're talking about, is because we thought that Moses Moody has that IQ. Turns out he doesn't. That's why he's not playing. You could also argue that maybe Steve Kerr can just say, dude, can you just play him? Yeah. Can you just play him 10 minutes? Maybe he does. Yeah,
maybe
I was going to give him a shot, maybe.
That's kind of my other question. So it's we always talk. Actually, let's save that one for a little later. Yeah. I got a thought there. Yeah. Let's get to the Kings. What's your perception of the Kings? Why they're good?
So, Mike Brown, because they have Mike Brown.
Secret, the new Alvin Gentry. He was the real reason. Yeah,
dude. Which is funny because Mike Brown was considered, before he went to the Warriors, considered kind of like a boring retread coach. I don't think he was considered this great guy. He's not. So the
Good
job
defensive coach, but no like idea. Like his offenses are so vanilla, right?
so vanilla, and now he's manning the best offense in the NBA. Like that's now part of that is, and well, I guess we'll get into it. So my thing with the Kings is different. So I think it's different from the Jazz. I mean, obviously they got good role guys. Kevin Huerter shooting like he's prime Klay Thompson. It doesn't. That's gonna fall off at some point. They've got Sabonis, who's on offense as smart as Draymond, and then defensively maybe he's not. Maybe he's not as bad as we thought it was going to be. I do think with the Kings they do have the youthful, they do have the youthful energy and like, hey, we're gonna have to take that next step here because it's do or die for us that the Warriors don't have. So I think for them it's a little different. It's like the Warriors in 2013-14 where the Warriors treated every regular season game like it was a championship game. Do you remember when the Warriors went into Miami in 13-14 and won that game on a game-winning Draymond layup? They celebrated like they won the championship. I do feel like you can't replicate that because the Warriors have two timelines. One timeline is that, dude, that happened 8 years ago. You can't do that. If you do, you're not going to last. Then the second timeline is they're not good enough to feel that way, right? So they're not good enough to say, like, we're going to play each game like we're good enough to win. I think the Kings are right in the middle where they have a team where we've gotten past the shitty days of learning how to play NBA basketball, but we're not good enough to know that we can win. So they're playing every single game like it's the championship. And I just think that's a mindset difference versus the Warriors. So I think that's what the difference is with the Kings, because it's not like I don't think the Kings did everything right. Like, I do think Tyrese Halliburton would be the best player on that team, but De'Aaron Fox is averaging X amount of points, right? He's amazing. And Keegan Murray's a great pick. He's a guy that I think the Warriors would love. All right. So Harry B, same thing. And maybe even Sabonis. So I think it's just timing with
I was going to say, I have a little bit of a different take on it. I look at the players they acquired over the last year, and it's fundamentally different than the players the Kings have acquired in the past. In the past, the Kings would just jump at whoever was the most like impressive physical specimen. Marvin Bagley, DeMarcus Cousins, Thomas Robinson.
Oh boy.
We can keep going down the line, just like dudes who, for lack, just like, and Boogie was good, but like, you get what I'm saying. These are guys who are just like used to just being like kind of physical freaks out there. What did the Kings do in the last year? Acquired Sabonis. Now, Tyrese Halliburton's really good, so maybe you could call it a kind of a win-win for both sides. But like, Sabonis is one of the better passing bigs. Like, even if he's not scoring, he's getting 6, 7, 8 assists for them. He's very key to them. They acquire Kevin Huerter, a guy who just gets how to play basketball, good passer, hell of a shooter. It reminds me of Warriors players in general, the way he approaches the game. And then Keegan Murray. Everyone laughed at them for taking Keegan Murray. Oh, why don't you take Jaden Ivey? He has higher upside. That sort of thing. They're like, no, Keegan Murray can shoot the lights out of the ball, and he understands how to play team basketball.
It's facts.
And I wonder if it's one of those things where we think guys have higher upside because of their athleticism. And it's not actually high. There's like perceived upside and there's higher upside. Perceived upside is that like Jaden Ivey is going to be better than Keegan Murray. Actual upside is a 6'8" dude who can shoot the ball, pass, and do the things that Keegan Murray can. He just doesn't have a 40-inch vert. That's really what it comes down to. Like, he's not a freak athlete like Kuminga, but he can play basketball at a pretty high level at 20. Why won't he get better at 25? That's, by the way, also the argument for like Tyrese Halliburton and Franz Wagner and Moses Moody too,
Let me ask you this. If the Warriors were in the situation that the Kings were in and you imported the Warriors front office, would they draft Jaden Ivey or Keegan Murray with the 4th pick? What would they do?
Do they have the Kings roster?
I don't know.
Or do they have the Warriors roster?
I don't know if that matters. I feel like that doesn't matter.
Okay. I mean, based off of their last two, there's actually I have it in the rundown, but there's this quote Bob Myers had after the title.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought, let's just draft the best players who are on the board. A lot of people want us to trade them for a star. this is not to say in the vein of I told you so, but we did think Andrew Wiggins could fill that role. We did. Not a lot of people did, but we wanted to see him fill that role as the fourth guy. But they keep saying they wanted to draft the best player on the board, not just go for the fit. They want to take the highest upside. And it ties to this broader point, which is like, are they just saying athleticism is upside at this or makes him the best player?
They're saying, yeah. I mean, yes, because they've shown it twice now. So I asked that question. I think they would take Jaden Ivey. And by the way, Jaden Ivey looks pretty good in Detroit. So I don't even know if I don't even know that's a bad pick. But I think the point is, though, Keegan Murray is a Warriors player. We've seen it the last decade. And I think that the Warriors went against kind of what they stumbled in making it some successful. Now, I don't know. Maybe it's Jerry West. Maybe Jerry West was like, you got to get Clay, and I don't know. And Harrison Barnes would have worked out too. He's Harrison Barnes is a Warriors player. Like, he is smart, defends. He's at a point where he's going to have a very long career. But I do think you're looking at the front office in the past 3 seasons. Yeah, I don't think there's any chance to take Keegan Murray over Jaden Ivey. Keegan Murray will play for the Warriors right now, which brings you to your next question, right? If Tyrese Halliburton or Franz Wagner, guys that were drafted after James Wiseman and Kuminga, were drafted to the Warriors, would Steve Kerr play them? Yes. How could the answer be no? How could it? Do you think the answer would be no?
Moses Moody. Here's my counter to you. Yeah. How would Moody look if he got 20 minutes a night every night the way those guys did? Do you not think he could pick it up? And do you not think that there's a level of – I think if you gave Steve Kerr the current version of Franz Wagner, who he's watched play well in the NBA, he might get a ton of run. I'm not so sure that he would have got a ton of run if he came in as a rookie.
So the argument here,
I'm just saying, to me, it seems like there's a little bit of a disconnect.
But that's just for Moody.
My argument here is, yeah, it is. So you could say, so I guess let's take this a step back because now I'm confusing myself. It's convoluted. The Warriors have drafted 2 high-level athletes who lack a certain level of basketball feel. And that's just not going to work with Steve Kerr. On the flip side, they picked Moses Moody, who was supposed to be the complete opposite way. He's got feel. He can shoot the ball. But, he kind of lacks a first step and a couple other things. None of them can get on the floor consistently. And I guess my question is, do you think those players would be getting on the floor for a Sacramento, for some of these other teams more consistently? And do you think those players we're talking about with Sacramento would be getting on the floor more consistently with the Warriors? Like, I think there's 2 things going on here. One, I'm not convinced the Warriors front office necessarily made the best draft selections, but I'm also not convinced the coaching staff is set up to develop guys particularly well, even with all the development picks they have.
Which tells me that there's one core issue then, which is corporate jargon, is that they're not aligned. The front office and the coaching staff, they're not aligned, because I think if they were, they would either have traded these guys now and maybe even by the trade deadline, or they would have had a plan put together and said, hey, we know Moses Moody and Kuminga and Wiseman are going to struggle, but we're just going to get them 15 minutes a game. But maybe that was the plan, but the best laid plans, you know what I mean? They get screwed because all of a sudden you go 0-5 on a road trip with some young guys, and Steve Kerr's like, you know what? Fuck your plan, right? I get to do what I want now. And now I think Steve Kerr kind of – the thing is, I also find it fascinating.
Or like last year, you go 18-2 not playing them, and it's like, you know what? Fuck your plan.
Exactly.
We're 18-2. So it's like it goes both ways with that.
Now they have no choice. Because now they truly have no choice. And I think this is where Steve Kerr is saying that he's doing a bad job coaching up the young kids, which I think is funny because it's like, well, I would like to know why or how you think you're doing a bad job. That would be interesting to know. But the other thing is like, and I talked about this like weeks ago. It's dude, Steve, you gotta just pick a lane, man. Like, are you just going to go with two-way guys and jerk them around and hope the team trades for vets? Okay, fine. Then go that way. Right? Or are you going to let these kids try to grow? Because if you had a choice, I feel like the latter, and Steve Kerr's a long-term guy, the latter is going to get you more long-term wins, presumably. Anthony Lamb, Ty Jerome, those guys are not going to get you long. They're not GP2. And I think last year it's like, well, we saw GP2 for like 3 games. We're like, oh shit. Oh wow. Okay, he has to play. Like as much as Lamb has been cool and Jerome has been cool, they're not.
He forced the hand.
Yeah. Those 2 guys are solid. They're fine, but they're not GP2.
And I think misalignment, you're right. That is kind of the point I was getting at there is when I look at to tie it all back together, because I went in 4 different directions there. Utah and Sacramento, man 1 through 12, 15, they all know what they want to do. And they all are bought in to what they want to do the whole way through. You keep hearing how like Kuminga, Moody maybe don't want to play their role. Have they even been given the chance to play the role? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like a lot of, the only young guy who got a chance to play a role was James Wiseman. And he was he's just not an NBA player right now. Like, but at least he got 10 games in a row of a consistent rotation every night. So that's kind of what it ties to with me with the young players a little bit too for the Warriors. It's like, let's see Moses Moody play 15 minutes a night for 10 games in a row and see what happens.
Yes.
Let's see what happens. Let's see Jonathan Kuminga get 10 to 15. Like, give him 2 stints, beginning of the second, end of the third. And if he does well, you extend it. And if he's kind of, going to cost you the game, maybe it's more 4 minutes instead of 8, that type of thing. But like, do the thing where you're getting him in the lineup every day. Cause that's the biggest thing. Like I'm not convinced the Warriors took the best guys at their picks, but I'm also not convinced that they're doing everything they can to make these guys look as good as they are. And I'd at least like to tackle the latter before worrying about the former.
On one hand too, I also get Steve Kerr's point. Is, dude, why the hell should I bother with this right now? We have the greatest basketball player in the world. We have one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Dude, why should I even bother with spending valuable minutes trying to worry about if Moses Moody is going to make the right pass or Jonathan Kuminga is going to make the right rotation? That's the last thing he wants to worry about. And I think that's fair. That's not his job. If that was his job, he should go to OKC. He should go to Orlando. He should go to Utah, right? David Hardy's doing a great job, or I forget whatever his name is, down there. And so that's what they should be doing. His job isn't supposed to be caretaking and making sure these teams just gets run. So I do think Steve has a point to where you're right. I agree. Give Moody, give Kuminga 10, 15 minutes. Like, stop with that. Kuminga's playing 6 minutes and then he's done for the rest of the game. Like, that doesn't do anything. And some people are like, oh, Kuminga's awful in those 6 minutes. I'm like, dude, what are you supposed to be in 6 minutes, right? Unless you're a GP2 who just makes like 2 pick sixes in 6 minutes, but that's who he is. Kuminga's not that guy.
Which is what Steve wants him to do, and I just don't know if that's a realistic expectation.
It's not. It's not a realistic expectation for anybody. And so maybe to your point, maybe you're right. Maybe if Halliburton was drafted by the Warriors, he wouldn't be playing much either. And I would say, especially if the Warriors had drafted LaMelo Ball, what would he be doing on the Warriors? Because I don't know. He's better than Wiseman. That's for damn sure. Anybody's better than Wiseman. But like LaMelo would have a hard time, I think.
Yeah, if he doesn't get the freedom to play his game, what's going on? Yeah, and that's kind of why the 2 timeline plan is just, it's annoying. Is what the best way to put it right now is. It's annoying. You have a core which can win a title, but you don't have enough depth. You have a coach who wants to play veterans, And then he's making it needlessly tough on the rookies. And then you have a front office who continues to swing for athleticism over what works for the Warriors over the years. They clearly messed up the number 2 pick in 2020. James Wiseman can bounce back and have a good career. There's no chance on earth he will be the second best player in that draft. Zero.
I mean, yeah,
zero. Like right now, he's just trying to prove he's an NBA player. And let's go from there. And then Kuminga, the jury's out. We'll see, but he could be a really good player. I still have some optimism. I still have optimism there, but both of them are kind of the opposite of what's made the Warriors successful over the years.
Yeah, I think the real question is, if they do end up being players, is it on the Warriors? That's the question. It's the big one to me. Is it going to be on the Golden State Warriors? Which is a little sad. So I do think they have, but they have time. I think they have time. The Warriors do, to figure this out. They're only a couple games out of first place. Saw a tweet from our friend Justin Grant about if the Warriors had played their normal rotation right now on the road trip, they probably would have gone 3-2 or 4-1. That will put them first place, by the way, in the first place in the Western Conference. So I think the Warriors are still okay, which is why it's important right now for them to say, let's get these minutes to Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, because if they're not going to play for the next month, then they're not going to play. They're not going to play. So, all right, what are we doing here?
It's time to get to the mailbag, Andy.
Let's go.
We got some great mailbag questions. I'm going to try to power through these for our special holiday edition here. So let's start with friend of the show, Tommy Gunn. Considering how light the Warriors front office is, only 2 consistently playable guys, what are the odds they actually make a move for front court help? Feels like malpractice not to do so. It's putting Dre Looney health at even greater risk.
Do we remember we had this exact same question last year? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And then Kevon Looney.
There's also we also got Acumen LFC going, assuming they clamor for a trade, will Joe be willing to part with Wiseman for a rental piece veteran without getting any draft compensation? Why don't I take this one? My feeling is it's too early to tell. 1, no trades are happening before December 15th. That's the date that a lot of contracts get guaranteed. 2, I still don't think any trades are happening until closer to the deadline, just because that's the way the trade market works. You get to February 1st, teams are actually active for trades. And with those 2 things in hand, I just think there's still too much time to know where they are at with some of these players. We need to see what happens over, sadly, the next 20 or so games. I think they need to make a move sooner than later, but I can't see anything happening in minimum for another month plus till we see some more action.
I also think that if they're going to make a move, it's not going to be with Kuminga and Moody. I think those guys are staying. Those guys aren't going anywhere. I think the move is Wiseman. I think they can talk themselves out of, hey, Wiseman's going to be a legitimate star big for us. I think they can talk themselves out of that. I don't think you can talk yourself out of Kuminga can be a two-way force and Moses Moody can be a really good role player. I think those things are can still be very true. So I don't think the Warriors, knowing who they are going to let go of that. But I do think like we saw Saddiq Bey. Teams are asking about Saddiq Bey. I think that's a perfect. I don't think it would be a big. I just don't think the Warriors would do that. I think the Warriors would go, all right, let's get a wing. Let's get a guy that we trust that can shoot the ball. I don't really know how good Saddiq Bey is defensively. I know he's a streaky shooter and scorer, but that's a guy that may be a good fit for the Warriors. He's relatively young. That's another guy that they have to kind of pay, right? So I don't know. It's not a veteran, so it's not Pirtle. It's not any of these older guys, not Kelly Olynyk. So is that someone that they want? Is it like that? Because they don't want to trade. I think their fear is they don't want to trade.
I do wonder if
for a vet. That's the thing, because the vet is a 1-year rental.
So they don't want to trade him for a rental, in my opinion.
Because Saddiq Bey could be like the new version of Andrew Wiggins. Like he could just be the new version of
Wiggins. Otto Porter, honestly.
But Bey would stay. Like he would be on the Warriors for a long time if he pans out.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I actually like Sadiq Bey because he's kind of struggling with his shot. I know he can shoot the ball. It's just one of those things where I think he's in the wrong role. It does feel like Wiggins in the sense of if you're asking him to be the 18 point per game scorer, he's not that guy. I'm talking about Sadiq Bey. But if you're asking him to be like 10 points per game, take smart shots and pass the ball, now that's a little more his game. That makes a little more sense. Villanova guy, Kerr's going to be fucking just hyped on that. All right. Blasphemous one from Kind of Paul. Who's the worst player you would trade Draymond for at the deadline? I'm not pro trading Draymond for anyone, just to be clear. No Draymond trade. So I'm going to say Pascal Siakam is the worst player I would trade Draymond Green for. Take with that what you want, but that's what I'm not trading him unless it's for an all-star who is better than him.
Is there a package with Toronto? Why would Toronto want Draymond? Actually, that would be a decent fit with Toronto. They got some good guys. I think Scotty they can put around him. OG Anunoby, they can get him the ball. Like the thing with Toronto, their issue, in my opinion, is that they spend so much time isoing.
Yeah.
The offense is disgusting.
To be clear, I don't think they would do it. I'm just saying, like, I'm not trading Draymond unless it's something so compelling where I'm like, all right, this kind of hurts, but I have to do it.
Well, why would they do that? Yeah, I mean, Draymond and Wiseman, you would throw Wiseman. I don't see why Toronto would do that unless we've seen Pascal get into arguments with Nick Nurse and maybe he asked for a trade, something like that. Man, but you run the risk. I tell you, if Toronto gets a hold of Draymond, I do think that's a really good fit for that team. If you put wings around him like Anunoby and Scotty Barnes, and then you can get some scorers like Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet, like I bet you Draymond will have a lot of fun with those guys. That's a second tier Eastern Conference team that would be very scary. Draymond, I'm with you though. I wouldn't. Why? Steph might leave with him. Steph might request a trade after that. He might ask to go to Charlotte and call it a career if that happens.
Or go to Milwaukee. Yeah, no, I mean the point stands. It's not. It's not happening. If the Warriors do trade young players, who would you keep? I also saw another version of this. Who's the player you'd want to protect the most? So it's basically our young player power rankings. For me, Kuminga still has the highest ceiling, has shown probably the most stuff, even if I'm frustrated with a lot of his play and recognize that there's a really realistic chance he never puts it all together. I still think you got to protect him because he's the highest upside guy you have, period. 2 would be Moody. I really don't understand why he's not playing more. I think he could help this team. I think he'd help most teams, to be honest. And then, Wiseman, anyone can have him as far as
I would. So I agree with you on the first 2. I mean, maybe you throw Patrick Baldwin in the 3rd slot. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, how sad is that? Maybe you throw Patrick Baldwin as the 3rd guy you'd have over Wiseman because he's more of an
a couple shots. You're like, I'll take my chances.
Honestly, I would. He's a shooter. I know that's going to translate to the NBA level. He's like, what's the worst he can be? Kelly Olynyk? So is that the worst player that Baldwin's going to be? What's the worst that Wiseman's going to be? Like, he might be in China with Dwight Howard in a year and a half. You know what I mean? Like, just getting 30, 20, and 10. I bet that would be same thing. Chinese people are going to be so mad at me. Yeah, so anyway, let's keep it moving to the next one.
LeBron got to you. You're like, I'm not making Daryl Morey's mistakes.
It's an honest mistake. Taiwan, that was an honest mistake. Oh, my
God. We're hearing now local media blame Kerr for not giving the kids enough run. How much blame is actually on Kerr versus the players? We kind of already talked about that. I also haven't heard anyone blaming Kerr, to be honest. A friend of the show, TK, did mention he didn't understand it, and I kind of agree with him.
It's kind of weird, though. I will say this. Hey, I'll say this. It is kind of weird if TK mentions it. Bet you Joe's curious.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. They're not aligned. Steve just wants veterans, and he wants to be like, Why are we messing around? I have Jesus running point guard, like, and to be fair, I don't mind. And the front office is like, we're spending $1 bazillion, develop some guys, and they're not that bad. Kind of get both perspectives. I wish they would get on the same page. Anyway, Mateo asks, does Big Jim have some dark info about Joey Lightyears?
That's the classic case. Joey as a tech guy is it's like Wiseman is crypto, man. It's like he's crypto. Joey's just holding on for dear life. For what? For what reason? Get out of there, Joe. Get out of there. But also, I don't know what you get for him. I don't know.
All right. I like this one from Truth Be Told. Houston Rockets finished 6th in the West in 94-95 and still won it all. How do you compare the Dubs to that team? I want to take this one because there's one very interesting thing that team did. They won the title. They were kind of fighting for the 6, 7, 8 seed all year. They swung a big trade for Clyde Drexler because they realized midway through the season they weren't going to repeat. They're like, this isn't working. We need to bring in something new to fix it up. They did. They went on a run. Everyone knew they were better than the 6th seed by the time the playoffs started because they had that late season momentum thing going on, and boom. So that's kind of gets back to my point. I do think the Warriors need to shake it up in some way. Could be small, could be big.
Yeah, let's move. I don't know. I can't answer that one.
I think this is a fun one for you. We'll end on this one for the mailbag segment. Funnier fan base to laugh at: late 2010 Rockets or 2020 Suns?
They have something in common. Common thread. Our guy.
The Corporal?
Salute to the
Officer.
GOAT. General Paul himself. I think it's funnier to laugh. I think it's funnier to laugh at the Rockets because the Rockets are a better team than these Suns. I think the Rockets are way better as a team than these Suns.
They were good.
So it's funnier to laugh at them because Harden had his fair share of like what he would say about the Warriors, and he spent his whole career losing to the Warriors, and then Chris Paul would come in and he's kind of in his prime. So I think it's funnier there. They also played a disgusting version of basketball that did not deserve to win, even though they were a great team. So I think it's funnier to laugh at them. The 2020 Suns are kind of sad. I think they're a little sad because I don't think they're that good. They also act like they've won a championship, which is the saddest part, because they haven't shown anything that you would think they're going to be good enough to win it all. And so I think that's the saddest part. They don't have a James Harden. James Harden in 2018, like those years of James Harden, like that was as close to Steph as he's ever going to get. Now you see Steph hit another level, and Harden's kind of like just not good anymore. So I think these Suns
Harden
sad.
won a deserved MVP.
Yeah. Devin Booker's never been in an MVP
Devin
conversation.
Booker's not winning.
No.
Exactly.
No.
So I feel like this, for me, it's the Rockets were more satisfying to beat because of how good they were. The Suns are more fun to laugh at because of how fraudulent they feel. Like, I can't take them seriously. At least the Rockets, I was like, they were the second best team to the Warriors for two years there. Yeah, they were legitimately that good. They were better than the Cavs. They just, it's the West. They didn't get to the finals. I think they are. There were those matchups were fun, and it was very satisfying to beat them. The Suns are. It's like that Mad Men meme. Like, I feel sorry for you. I don't even think about you. Like, you guys are you just stay in the little kid zone.
That is the thing about the Warriors and Suns. Now they haven't played each other in the postseason. Maybe we get that this season, but it's not really a rivalry. I just don't see that Warriors fans care. By the way, it is sad to think about that 2018 season. Mm-hmm. The Rockets were up 3-2, and then they end up losing 2 games. Man, they win that series. They win the championship, right? Like the Cavs were terrible. They were awful that season. So Dude, yeah, I mean, they that's how close they were. They close out the Warriors. They were up almost 20 points at Oracle in Game 6 before Clay went off. Game 6 Clay. And so, whew, anyway, it's funny to laugh at both of them, honestly.
Let's get out of here with the corny "What are you thankful for?" question. In various sports, not counting Steph Curry, the most obvious answer, because we're all thankful for Steph, who's currently playing the best basketball I've ever seen him play. What are you most thankful for?
Are we talking all Bay Area sports or talking about Warriors? I'm talking about Warriors, right?
You know what? Whichever way you want to go.
Here's what I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with because in 30 years of watching sports, I've never seen this. I'm thankful for the Warriors just being together for as long as they've been together. It feels like the first time that we saw true like ripping apart was when Draymond punched Jordan Poole in the face a month ago. Like that was the time where I felt like, oh shit, like this might be falling apart here. And now it's kind of, we'll see. I think it's kind of been solved a little bit, but just overall, dude, it feels so impossible for a team to stay together that we can root for this long. I've rooted for the Giants who have won 3 World Series. There were so many iterations, and honestly, like they just didn't even make the playoffs some of those seasons. So it really wasn't that. It wasn't like a true like togetherness
Team.
like the Warriors have. The Niners have had some like the Harbaugh, but they haven't won a championship, right? So it doesn't hit. But with the Warriors, it's like not only do you have top 5, top 10 player of all time, but then you have all these dudes that have been there. Steve Kerr has been here. Draymond, Clay has been here. Dude, like when we watched them win a championship together, us like Clay was just saying how happy he was to be back afterwards. Like, you're crying watching that shit. So I think it's cool that we get to see all of that and hopefully have it extend for another couple of years. So that's it, man. I just don't think we'll ever see anything like that happen again. Partly because of Steph. I cheated. I chose part of this stuff. I just don't think you get to see Steph and Draymond and Clay and Iguodala and those guys like be truly happy to play together ever again in any sport ever. So there you go.
I like that. I don't really know that I have one to follow up on that. So I'm going to say I'm thankful for the goons. Appreciate everyone who subscribes, rate 5 stars. We'll see you Sunday post-game show after Wolves, Warriors. We'll tweet out times. Later.